Good day and welcome to Tough Talk. My name is Steve Badier, and I have with me today as a guest Manal Younus.
Hello.
As you know, Manal is one of the inspiring young Africans within the African community who does poetry, or aka storytelling. So we'll be talking to her about her motivation and desire to do storytelling and what she wants to achieve through her work. So welcome, Manal.
Thank you.
Okay, so to start off with, who is Manal and what describes you?
Oh, these are big questions. Who is Manal? Manal is a young woman who's grown up most of her life in Adelaide, is originally from Eritrea, East Africa, and obviously is a young Muslim as well.
And you do storytelling. The first time I met you was 2015 at Palava, Sub Magazine event, and I really enjoyed your storytelling you did, a presentation that was really good. But then what motivated you into storytelling?
I think I've always loved storytelling ever since I was younger. So in our cultures, like a lot of it is oral history. You know, we learn things through story. That's how we understand the world around us. You know, so I've always just loved stories, listening to them and telling them. And I've been writing, you know, poetry, short stories, songs ever since I could write. And so, yeah, I think just over time just developed into a love. And then when I started studying journalism as well, it was because of that same thing. I wanted to learn and then tell stories. And so that's essentially what I'm doing now, even though I haven't followed down that career path, is just taking the opportunities to go and learn things and then share them through the stories that I tell.
And I'm thinking just you being an African, so coming to Australia at an early age, you have sort of Africanness to you, parents, and then being in Australia. So you have experiences that could span from both the African side of things to your, Australian upbringing. So, like, does this in any way shape the focus of your storytelling, or what exactly do you focus on as you tell your story? What's your theme?
I think that, like, as people, we're so complex and we cover so many different themes, and so I couldn't tell you what the theme of my stories are because they cover everything. Because the reason that I tell stories is partly to express, partly to also work out my own thinking. So anything that a person would normally think about in their day-to-day lives, I've probably written a poem about. So I don't think I could narrow that down, but when it comes to how my background shapes my stories, I think that it shapes who you are, and so automatically it shapes everything that comes out of your mouth. So my Eritrean heritage, growing up with a father who taught me a lot of values, and then over the past 6-7 years I've been focusing on learning more about my background and everything. Growing up in an Eritrean community, in an Ethiopian community, like a good mix, means that it's influenced my friendships, it's influenced how I relate to people, it's influenced the way I view things, I think that, that you can't separate them. They become a part of who you are. And so a lot of stories that I tell end up being about, my experience of going back, or my experience of being around my grandparents or my father or other people who've influenced me in my community. So.
And then let's go to also launch something you were part of, sort of building up or organizing. And how hard was it? Because you have now moved to Melbourne. And how hard was it organizing So launch or building something or something you are passionate about, creating a platform where other, storytellers or poets, could read poems. And like, what's the experience with So Launch?
There was a lot of different experiences that came with building something like that. Luckily, like for the most part, there's been such a great team and everything. And so a big part of it is just having the community aspect and remembering that, the reason that you're doing it is so that something like that exists. You don't necessarily want some kind of reward for it. It's just that it's a space that needs to be there. And I think that everybody who's a part of the Soul Lounge team knows that. And it's just like sometimes you're giving a lot more than you're getting, and that's okay though, because in the end, It's just something that needs to exist, and you're putting yourself out there to make that happen. I think that some of the challenges, especially earlier on, were getting people to see what it is that you're trying to achieve. So, with our communities, people need to see proof before they can...
evidence.
Yeah, exactly, the evidence. So probably people loved it from the beginning, but it wasn't until about 6 months in that there was people, apart from I would pretty much grab a friend or a sister or somebody and I was help me today, and it'd just be trying to set it up on your own for the first 6 months. But then eventually it's just people just come up and it's I want to be a part of this. I want this to grow. And so since then the team has been building and evolving and changing, and we've got different leaders, and now I'm able to leave, and they've got this amazing thing that happens that there's a group that run it every month and have changed it since I've been there, and it's beautiful to see that change happening and see people taking ownership. Yeah,
and it has become big in a way because I have gone a few times. And what do you take from that experience, moving on, going to Melbourne? Because you see, it is pretty difficult to build, and it is pretty amazing to see people appreciate you for something you have built. I think it's to me, it's bigger than anything. It's a good feeling, you feel achieved. But going on, did you take anything from your experience at So Launch that could guide you in the process of establishing yourself, engaging and building other dreams of yours?
Definitely, because I think Soul Lounge is it was the one that worked out of all these other things that I've tried doing before. And I think that from each one, I've learned something very different. And I was okay, cool, not going to do that again. That failed. Same thing with this one, same thing with this one. And then finally it was come up with something that worked. And I think it's the same thing in the sense that now I'm not trying to do anything similar to Soul Lounge where I am. That's not my focus. But there are so many things that have been learned in that about, whether it's about teams, about how communities work and everything, finally seeing something that's actually functional. Because, when you've been in the community workspace, you've seen a lot of things that haven't worked. You've been a part of a lot of things that haven't worked. You've invested in other people's things that haven't worked, And so finally seeing stuff that does work, and then just learning from that and being okay, cool, these are key lessons I need to take into the next round. I think it's going to shape whatever I do next.
Yeah, and that's because I think looking at Soul Lounge, I think you have people of the same mindset, like Flora, and working with a great team. Just from my experience, I think one of the reasons we struggle building things or taking things from one level to the next is we usually don't have the right team. And I think once we start to work with the right team of people with the same mindset, same level of commitment, we will sort of achieve our goals. Until we do that, then we may struggle to get things from the ground up. But then to another question, we had a chat before, and you said something interesting about you taking, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you taking time off and thinking about the next move and just reflecting on things, learning about things more. And I think which was interesting to me, because sometimes we do get confused in thinking we know certain things we don't know. So sometimes taking a step back and reflecting on steps you need to take, getting more information, education about things. That was it was brilliant to hear that from you. So I was just going to ask, what's your interest now on, what is Manal's state of mind now in terms of your goals and what you want to achieve, and what's the learning process for you in terms of getting to where you want to be?
I don't think I know where I want to be honest. I think that the next steps are just continuing to open my mind. I love what I'm doing now. I'm doing a lot of performing, and particularly in schools, but I'm taking the time to learn, because I think the most important thing about progress or creating progress is knowing that there's always progress to be made. And that's progress in yourself, progress in what you do. And so, I think just doing as much as I can to continue to grow in the arts, exploring different types of arts, collaborating with people, taking a lot of time to just chill and absorb, other things around me. Also writing more, because that's something that suffers when you focus on whether it's just performance or just events or just whatever. And absorbing more from people around me. So, you know, there are times when you get so focused on what you're doing that you forget to look around, you forget to support your fellow peers and other artists and stuff like that. So this is kind of very much a stage of just kind of seeing what's out there, hopefully like traveling a little bit more, things like that. And then, yeah, I do have a couple of projects on the way for this next few months, and they're very different to what I've done before. So that's kind of exciting. But in the long term, I think I don't know enough to be able to choose what I want to do yet. But it'll definitely include storytelling and poetry, and I'll continue performing for all of as far as I can see into the future. I'm going to be performing, but we'll see.
Okay. So like, just want to push you a little bit. We live in a society that is complex, right? So many things happening around us. What are other social things you look at? You don't have to go into anything specifically, but what are things that draw your attention in terms of things that you have interesting outside of storytelling, or something you would like to speak about through your storytelling? Is there anything social, economic, political that interests you now as a person?
Yeah, lots of things. So, you know, I come from an activist and social justice and community-orientated background. So I think it's always going to come into my writing. In terms of particular issues, I think that always varies depending on what's happening. I think that there are some things that you can't really escape simply for being who you are in this country. Like, you know, I just need to tell a story about my grandmother, and people are like, oh my goodness, like, you know, you're talking about the African history, and you're talking about like your experiences as a black Muslim woman and everything. And it's just like, yeah, I am, but I was actually just telling a story about my grandmother as well. And so because of that, they're always going to be interlinked. And I think that social justice in that sense, like when talking about race or talking about issues, talking about colonization, is always going to come into the stories. But it's not necessarily the focus anymore all the time.
Yeah. So before I let you go, let's say I'm trying to make a projection here in the next 10 years, or let's say 15 years. Who you want to achieve, like who Manal be, like in your own vision?
I can't think that far ahead. 15 years?
Yeah.
I mean, I think about who I was 15 years ago, and that person never would have predicted this.
Yes.
So I can't even think of 15 years ahead. But inshallah, it'll be in a good place, and I'll still be able to contribute to the world, and I'll be surrounded by beautiful people.
Yeah, and still do public speaking.
Maybe. Yeah. Maybe in 15 years. Yeah.
Yeah, so is there anything else you want to say or people should know about you?
What do you want to know? Nothing. Is this what you want me to talk about? Like?
No, just anything, like a message, just anything you like to talk about. Or any advice to young people, let's say, do you have an advice for young Africans like you, any message?
Yeah, I think that always invest in your learning. Okay. Whatever that might be, you know, that might not be going to university, that's not for everyone. It might not be, you know, doing courses, that's not for everyone. It might not be traveling, that's not for everyone, but it might be one of those things. It might be all of those things. It might be just exposing yourself to the world as much as possible, involving yourself in places or amongst people that can teach you something. Yeah. That's just the most important thing you can do, no matter what field you're going into, no matter what you want to do with your life. Like, invest in your learning and your growth, and just building onto skills.
And like, I just have to ask this because for people who don't know, you wear young South Australian finalist, South Australian of the Year. Was it
Yeah.
2000 what?
2016, 15?
2016, 15.
I get confused about how they do
And
it.
what was the experience like? Because that's incredible. For a young African woman being nominated and going as far as being one of the finalists. That's something African youth could learn from, and I think it is important that. What was the experience like that people could learn from you, and you could inspire the young Africans to maybe do the same?
I think first of all, know that so many Africans have done it. So you had Yasmin Abdelmajid, you had Abdullahi Alim, you have like a bunch of Africans who have actually achieved that, which is so great. So you know that it's it's something that's accessible to you. The other thing is also these people got these nominations by doing stuff for their community and being real. Like for some, it was working within youth. For others, it's been like just working. Like I know Abdullahi like works a lot with the like his community, right?
Yeah.
And just being authentic in whatever it is you do, and also knowing that you don't need the country to legitimize you. You know, like for me, if anything, what that award did for me was raise awareness about me toward my community and other places, which sucks that I needed to be legitimized out there in order to be legit in my community. But it meant that I had access to more people, like in terms of like more communities in different states and stuff. And it meant that I could do more. But I didn't necessarily feel like that award meant like that was a big achievement. Yeah, it was lovely to get the acknowledgement, but really there's so much more that I felt has been powerful for me ever since. Like when I step into a space where I know that there's like a whole heap of active young people and I get to be one of them, that's the reward for me,
But
you know?
Did that, because like you did appear on Q&A and have done TED Talk, and did that in a way contribute to those opportunities? Like that award, did it in any shape or form contribute to?
Yeah, it does. Any bit of publicity that you get is going to contribute to any new publicity that you do get. So definitely if that's what you're looking for, then that kind of thing is so beneficial. And it's necessary. It's necessary for our people to be in these places as well, by the way. I'm not saying that it's useless or anything. I guess I'm just trying to stress the importance of like, that's not, it opens up a lot of opportunities, but in terms of that being your goal, there's so much more than that that's fruitful, you know?
Yeah.
There's so much more than that to hold on to. So definitely like,
And I think it is good that your work become the source of validation, not the award itself. And I think sometimes, and I'm just being technical here, it is tricky, and we may get caught up into the moment when the award validate us to our community. And I think we should. That's what I like, grassroots movements, and just being grounded in my community, and then maybe the award itself want to validate me outside instead of the award validating me within my community, which of course sometimes doesn't end well, because if the community doesn't embrace you, the award may do it for a short period. It could be so temporary, and they may be gone tomorrow, you know, or the publicity may be gone. But if you are grounded within the community, then you are always there. You know, they love you, they respect you, and confide in you as a leader or one of their community members. And I think it is very important that people understand that as well. And as much as it is good to get an award, but the focus should always be on the best interests of the community, and let the community, through that choice, sort of be another award for you. And I think that's a very good point you made about validation. Just want to say thank you for coming on. It was a great conversation, and look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Thank you. And thanks for watching. Please support us by sharing our video and commenting on our videos as well. Thanks.